Welcome, everyone, to our Thursday night talk at Mountain Cloud, in the Zendo, in the cloud. One all-pervading sitting. 2 nights ago, Tuesday evening, was Rachel Bilash's last time to serve as Jiki at Mountain Cloud. Over the years, Rachel has supported Mountain Cloud in almost every conceivable way, including 7 years on the board, 6 of those as president, and another year serving as our acting executive director. Even if you don't know Rachel, because we have a wonderful influx of new Sangha members, new sitters, we are all the inheritors of her gifts and her leadership. Thank you, Rachel. And thanks for your ongoing practice, for continuing to sit with the Sangha. There's another expression of thanks, larger than life, hanging in the entryway at Mountain Cloud. It's a white canvas with a magnificent calligraphy of an Enzo, painted here in the Zendo in 2017 by Kaz Tanahashi. The large canvas, I wasn't here, but I can picture this just laid out on the floor. And Kaz's body bending over it. A gift to Mountain Cloud. The title, penciled in just above the signature, is Miracles of the Moment. Everything coming forth in one swath of a brushstroke, like creation coming up in every step, in any gesture. The open circle, like the one here, the one we have, has that little gap characteristic of many Enzos. That open circle is said to represent the beauty of imperfection. Empty, endless, one transparency. Every trace of a line, every drop of ink, all of it. Some months ago, a student and longtime practitioner took up the circle, just this circle, as an image, as a living koan. She just took it in. She'd completed a round through the traditional koan curriculum and was circling back, picking up threads of cases that continued to resonate. And several of those cases that surfaced were with circles. Then, in her sitting, in her practice, out of this came the simple gesture of 0. So many times I've mentioned this teaching that we received from Yamada Koun Roshi. He loved this denominator in the fraction, whatever the numerator, wherever you point, whatever you see, whatever you sense over 0. the factor or fact that determines, expresses the reality of each thing just as it is. 0. Last spring, this student attended a session, a week, at Sonnenhof, this beautiful place I've just come back from. And she was practicing throughout that week with this circle or 0. As she prepared to leave, she noticed, after manifold times to Sonnenhof over decades, she saw a photograph in the entryway. I think it's been hanging there, but you know how she just noticed it somehow for the first time. And it's a picture, not large, of a bosatsu or a bodhisattva sitting regally with one hand held in this gesture, a circle. She sent me a photograph, and in the picture I saw the figure, the hand, the empty circle, and an extra gift, the reflection of the student holding her phone, taking the picture, and smiling with wonder, with joy. Last month, this student arranged her life to be able to join the full 4 weeks of the mini Ango that John Gaynor and I co-led at Sonnenhof. She arrived with a cold, a little concerning, wearing a mask, and imagining it would resolve in a few days. As that first week moved along, her cough worsened, and there was pain. I was so aware of it. We had arranged the Zendo, and she was seated next to me. It was clear that something more serious than a cold was going on. So the wonderful staff at Sonnenhof helped to arrange an appointment with a doctor. Listening closely, just with a stethoscope, the doctor could hear that this practitioner, this student, had an infection of the lining, the outer lining of the bones, and that it was moving into the lungs. So the doctor prescribed a powerful antibiotic. For several days, she tried to stay at the session, hoping to continue. But finally, it became clear she had to leave. So she went home, as it turned out, to an empty house. Having planned ahead, gone for 4 weeks, her partner had gone off too, on another adventure of his own. So she rested. And she rested in the spirit of this deep, silent sitting. Lying down, sitting on her cushion. One all-pervading sitting. With the circle right there. A few weeks later, toward the end of the Minyango, she sent an email, not just an update on her health, as we had been receiving these short, every few days messages, but a word from her practice. She wrote, my desperate wanting and grasping disappears. Observing, listening, feeling what is. She put in quotes, what is now? And then, this is my now, and now, and now. A growing sense of self-confidence. I can do it, create it, though it does. It creates itself. There is nothing to do. Just be. And then just. And then quotation marks around an empty space. Later on in another message, springing from her experience of this circle, she wrote, "This never grasping is not hopeless. It's full of freedom, never ending, step by step, each step complete and never ending." So tonight, as an expression of gratitude for Rachel, for the miracles of each moment, and for this practice, I'd like to turn to a koan that conveys this world of empty, infinite boundlessness, here and now. That conveys it in the gesture of a circle. So this is case 69 in the Hekiganroku or Blue Cliff record. And the title, it's basically Nansen's circle, or Nansen draws a circle. Here's the case. Nansen, Kisu, and Mayoku set out together to pay their respects to National Teacher Chu. On the way, Nansen drew a circle on the ground and said, "If you can say something, then let's go on." Kisu sat in the circle. Mayoku made a bow. Nansen said, "In that case, then let's not go any farther." Kisu said, "What is this all about?" There's a koan in and of itself, summing it all up. What is this all about? So let's look into it. Nansen, Kisu, and Mayoku are Dharma siblings, all disciples of the great 8th century master Baso or Masu. Nansen is the senior among them. They're on their way to visit national teacher Echu, or Chu, who's esteemed in the land, and according to the record of Echu's teaching, personally known as a teacher to Nansen and Mayoku. Echu practiced for 40 years as a mountain monk. And then, after repeated requests, he's finally compelled to move to the palace and teach. Doesn't always go that way. Some of these mountain monks refused, even with the threat of death. But somehow Echu is touched and he goes. His teaching may be best known to us by this case that I've taken up before. I think I could just every week speak about it. It's known, it's called case 18 in the Blue Cliff Record, or Hekiganroku, case 85 in the Book of Serenity, or the Shoyoroku, where this emperor is with his beloved national teacher who's about to die, and the emperor asks, "What shall I do for you after 100 years?" Kind of a polite way of asking, how can I honor you after you die? And Echu says, build a seamless tomb for this old monk. That's what we're exploring every time we sit. Every koan, embodying it, this seamlessness. No inside, no outside. I might have mentioned this, I'm not sure, but one student in this mini ango in the last week came in and said, she was fairly new, sitting with Mu. And she said, in my last doksan, my skin was more porous, and the distance between us was nearer, not as far. This seamlessness starting to appear. No subject or object, no place for a gap, not the slightest separation. Seamless as an enzo, open or closed. Like that circle, perfectly whole. There are a couple of other examples of Echu, this national teacher's teaching. Kind of point to this. A monk asks, how can one become a Buddha? You know, Buddha just means awakened one. And the national teacher says, cast off the Buddha and all beings, and at that moment, you'll be liberated. This was Dogen. You drop away body and mind of self and other. Cast off our concepts, including the concept of waking up. You actually can't become anything. Already that. And not to mention that this separate I, the subject that would become something, actually doesn't exist. Not as we imagine. Cast off Buddha and all beings. Drop it all. And what remains? In another exchange, a monk asks, how can one be in accord with it? And the national teacher says, don't think of good or evil. Personally see Buddha nature. Intimate. This intimate seeing, where any distance between seer and seen is just one glimpse. Sometimes I hesitate to say that. It's so present, immediate, already so. But we have this language of just, one glimpse of this zero, this circle, this moment. And you are thoroughly in accord. Cannot evade that. Mumon, in his verse to Joshu's dog, to Mu, calls it the perfect manifestation, the absolute command. There's a little tiny fly crawling on the desk around the back of this computer. That's it. All of it. Here's how Kisu puts it in one teaching. So this Kisu, or Guizhong in Chinese, says, all of you here, don't make the error of employing your mind. Like here we on Roshi, do not exercise your mind. Just sit. See what comes. Kisu says no one can do it for you. Moreover, there is no place where the mind can be used. Don't be seeking it somewhere else. It's just not about logic, as if we could think our way to now, to this circle, to the boundless zero. That is exactly this. One teacher I noticed, Sharon Salzberg, well known, has a new book out I haven't had a chance to read yet, but her title is Real Life. This reality. Don't be seeking it somewhere else. Where else could it be? In the collected record from sometime later than this excursion, Myoku also has a teaching about the nature of the circle Nansen draws on the ground. Myoku likens it, the fact, that circle, to the wind. And then Mayu's teaching was made famous by Dogen, who includes it at the end of that amazing fascicle or essay called Genjo Koan, actualizing the fundamental point. The final section of that essay begins with an exchange between Myoku, who's now become Master Baiosh, and a monk. So Mayu, Zen Master Baiosh, is sitting there in the zendo or in his doksan room, fanning himself. Must have been hot. A monk comes up and says, Master, the nature of wind is constancy, and there is no place it does not reach. He quotes this key teaching. The nature of wind is constancy. There's no place it does not reach. Why then do you fan yourself? And Mayu says, although you understand that the nature of wind is constancy, you do not understand the meaning of its reaching everywhere. So the monk asks, what is the meaning of its reaching everywhere? And Mayu just keeps fanning. The monk in this exchange bows deeply. What does it mean that it reaches everywhere? Just this. Everywhere. Here. Nansen could have said the same about the circle. The nature of this circle is constancy, and there is no place it does not reach. But instead, like Mayu, he offers a gesture and a kind of ultimatum. Circle. Say a word. What is this? 3 Dharma brothers on their way together to visit the national teacher. Nansen draws the circle on the ground. If you can say something, then let's go further. He's actually right there, presenting the whole of it. One gesture, complete, inexhaustible, and empty. The fact, this drawing, that's it. Say a fitting word, offer a response in kind. If you can, we'll go on. So often the monks are stumped. I mean, put yourself there. You have the feeling you got to come up with some Zen word. And so your mouth is just stopped. It's so easy to get stuck in our assumptions. Say a word. Kisu is not the least bit caught up in right or wrong. He sits down in the circle. The character suggests he sits zazen. There it is. All of it. His sitting is that circle. Nansen says, if it is so, let's not go any further. He's really appreciating his companions. Here's the Dharma, all of it. Where could you go? And then Kisu, what is this all about? But it's no protest. He's simply showing it again. The whole circle, the fact, the way, completely at home, right where we are. So, does the journey continue? Everything resolved, fully arrived. No need to go anywhere. So, let's go on. A couple of days ago, actually this was yesterday, a Dharma friend reminded me of a joke. You probably know it, but I have this gift of a very porous memory, and it means you get to enjoy things over and over again. So a monk calls out, "How do I get to the other shore?" And the monk across the river calls back, "You're on the other shore." How do I get there? You're absolutely there. And we're all the time crossing over. So what about it? What about this crossing over or fanning when it's hot, or these gestures, drawing a circle, sitting, bowing, offered on our behalf? In his conclusion to the Ginjo Koan, Dogen offers a clue, and it springs from his own fundamental quandary, the question that drove Dogen to practice. If from the beginning all beings are Buddha, we are intrinsically awake, then why do we have to practice? It's nowhere but here. Why can't we see it? Why do we have to search for it? As Dogen puts it in the Ginjo Koan, The wind freely pervades everywhere. There's no place it does not reach. Why need a fan? The wind here is our practice. Zazen, this practice Dogen calls practicing realizing. Dropping away, being realized by the 10,000 myriad things. This all-pervading sitting. There's no place it does not reach. Think of these 4 vows that we're about to recite. There is no place this sitting does not reach. Dogen ends his essay with this line, and it's very poetic, so just let it wash over. He writes, "The nature of the wind is constancy. Because of that, the wind of the house of Buddhas reveals the great earth's golden presence and ripens the sweet milk of the long rivers." That's the end of what may be his most important essay. I expect to take up this line in our upcoming summer session. For now, I just to point. The wind of the house of Buddhas is this practice. Practice awakening with a dash. It reveals what we are. What are we? Earth's golden presence. And in doing that, and that revealing, and that coming forth, in that complete exposure, it ripens the sweet milk. Compassion, with all its attributes, of the long rivers of suffering. The circle right here, completely resolved and endlessly resolving. This week I met with a longtime practitioner who's ill with a progressive and curable illness. My practice is very basic, the practitioner said. I could feel the streamline, the simple act of being with things as they are. And there was such a sense of peace. Speaking of the illness, they said, my own pain opens out into the pain of the world, which is boundless. With compassion, I just face the suffering. It's not that fearful, and there is no resistance, no need to add resistance. So with healing intentions, gratitude for all the gifts and all the ancestors, named and unnamed. Thank you for this shared practice.